Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is George Ortega. I'm here with Lionel Ketchian, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Okay, today we're going to be talking about why fear, sadness, anger, and disgust are unnecessary to our happiness. Okay, Lionel, why don't you start us off with an overview of why these emotions are just not necessary?
Sure, George, I'd be happy to. I think that I got to start by saying I feel that the opposite of happiness isn't unhappiness, but fear. And some have said the opposite of love is fear. I think Gerald Jampolsky said that. And anything like that really rings a bell for me. And I think that fear let's face it, it is unnecessary. And we have to understand that our fears are not giving us the best advice. They're not giving us advice that are going to work for us in the most effective and efficient manner. So things like fear, things like becoming unhappy, really just put us in a helpless position. They don't empower us. They don't give us inner strength. We really don't know what to do even when we're provided with the answers. We can't decide what's right when we're in those states. And disgust as well is really not accepting what we might have to face, what we might have to accept. It's so much easier to accept things rather than resist them, because you've heard this statement that what you resist persists. And I think when we examine these things, or even an issue like sadness, it's the state of mind that we're coming from that puts us in these different unempowered emotions. And I think from that point of view, George, that's why we're here talking about happiness, because at least we can do something about these states of mind.
Yeah, and we're going to get into each of these emotions in more detail. What I'd like to do first is just explain exactly what we mean when we say that these unpleasant emotions are unnecessary, because that's not the whole story. Basically, our emotions do serve a purpose. What happens is our minds function in two ways. We perceive stimuli in their environment, and the usefulness of emotions is that our emotions function much faster than our rational mind. Okay, that's our first reaction we have to the world. So let's say we experience an unpleasant emotion like fear or sadness or anger, right? These emotions are useful to the extent that they communicate something to us. With fear, there may be a possible danger out there. With anger, there may be a possible injustice. Now, the reason we say that these emotions are unnecessary, it's not that they're unnecessary in their total, but once they've done their job, once they've alerted us to the potential danger, to the potential loss, as with sadness or whatever it is, they have done their job, and then it's our job to bring our rational mind into it. If there's a fear, if there's a danger that fear alerts us to, we address that fear. If there's an injustice, we address that. But we don't have to continue to feel those unpleasant emotions to address the situations. And in fact, these unpleasant emotions, if we continue to feel them, will just hinder our efforts to deal with whatever we have to deal with in the most pleasant and effective manner.
That's great. It's really good. I like the way you put that, George. And I think that what you're saying is that these emotions are hardwired. They're part of us. So we can't fight them per se. We can't just avoid them. We can't stop them in a sense. But we can work with them so that they could be more like an alarm clock to wake us to any potential danger or anything that needs to be changed or anything that needs our awareness. And once we see that, we can then come out of a different response rather than react almost unconsciously to these alarm clocks that seem to go off.
Exactly, because it is unconscious to a great extent. It's very visceral. It's very, very automatic the way these emotions come into our minds and our experience. So, you know, we feel them, and then we have to just move back to our happiness. Now, you brought up the fact, I think, that the opposite of happiness is, I think, fear, because fear, I think, is the primal unpleasant emotion. I mean, what happens is, like, you know, we're afraid of danger, right? But, like,
right.
Let's say we become angry with something. Well, the reason for our anger is that we feel that if there's a potential injustice being committed, then our happiness is in danger. You know, so that's a fear of losing our happiness. Again, with sadness, if we feel that we're in danger of losing something that's necessary to our happiness, again, that's a fear. So like, fear is definitely what prevents us, what creates these other unpleasant emotions and distracts us from feeling as happy as we can be.
Absolutely right, George. And I think these other emotions are issues of control, and ones that we may feel bad about, or may, sadness, anger, fear. We feel bad about these emotions when they emerge because we have no control over them, is what the real problem is. And when we realize that we can control them through being happy, we no longer feel the loss of our happiness. And I think that's the issue. I think the issue is we could feel anger, we could feel fear because we feel we're losing control of something. It might be a survival feeling. And if we realize that we can be in control of our happiness, and by doing that very thing, we're actually controlling our fear, we're controlling those impulses, and we're saying, okay, you gave me the signal, but I'm in control here, I'm in command, I've taken over, and everything's going to be okay. I'm going to deal with what's coming up. And I think the other aspect of happiness that's really great is it's a coping mechanism to help you deal with fear.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, it really is a matter of maintaining control, of just recognizing these emotions, but then controlling our minds to go back to what we really want to feel. Okay, it's time now for Amy Branch and Mary Berry with our West Coast
Happy Zone part of the Happiness Show, and I just want to say, look at this beautiful day here in San Francisco. You may or may not know that we've been experiencing extremely hot weather over here on the West Coast, and me and a few friends of mine decided to take advantage of this and go out on the bay sailing, as you can see. And you know what? Sailing makes people happy. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how sailing, how people take up sailing for hobbies and how they contribute to increasing others' happiness. So here we go. Hi, Rob.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Hello,
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome to the San Francisco Bay.
This is it, in the flesh. On the water.
This is as nice as it gets on the bay. It's beautiful. We have about a 10-knot breeze, lots of sunshine, good people.
That's right, we're having a blast out here. I can't stop smiling.
It makes us happy.
So Rob, tell me, what is your definition of happiness?
I find that if I go out sailing and have a nice day out, there's at least 2 or 3 days of euphoria that follow, and I think that's happiness right there.
Euphoria equals happiness.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be looking forward to my 3 or 4 days of euphoria after this.
And hopefully the wind will keep up and we'll all feel it.
Great. How does sailing contribute to your happiness?
It's good for the soul. Once you tap in with Mother Nature and harness the power of the wind and the water, it all kind of comes together. And it's silent and beautiful, and you could really feel it inside. It's nice.
Can you tell me about that time that you were so happy you wanted to jump up and down while you were sailing?
There was that one time we were out late at night, and we were in some really rough conditions, and we were using the motor and running out of gas, and we called a friend from shore, believe it or not. A yellow taxi driver, and he beamed us from shore with a little flashlight, and he showed up with a tank of gas, and I was so happy.
Otherwise you could have been stranded at sea, huh?
Otherwise we could be in Mexico right now.
Uh-oh.
Which would also make me happy, but
right.
It's nice to plan a trip to Mexico.
Does it make you happy to share your happiness with other people?
Absolutely, especially sailing. It's something that's so simple and it's right in front of us, especially in San Francisco, and most people never take advantage of it. So it's good to kind of spread the love.
Great. Well, with that, I think we're going to talk to Greg now, because Greg was the one who was able to influence Rob into starting to sail. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
It was easy to share the happiness with Rob. He already had it in him. The hard part was to tell him, no, we're not going sailing, once I took him the first few times. And then we found the boat. And that was probably the happiest time, because Rob wasn't bugging me anymore for sailing. Can we go? Can we go? Can we go? Can we go? I said, no, Rob, we can't go. I've gone sailing already this week. Forget it. But yeah, he's a natural. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, even if there's no wind. I mean, you're out here in the middle of the water. I mean, there's no to-do list. There's nobody standing around with things they want you to do.
No to-do list?
No to-do list. The only thing you got to do is to get back to shore, and that's when you want to do it. So,
I like that philosophy.
it doesn't get sweeter.
I've noticed that you guys haven't stopped smiling since we started sailing.
There you have it.
Bottom line, yeah, exactly. It's like, come on, this is fun. The first time we made it to the Bay Bridge, that was a big event. I got my first boat. We sailed it with no experience, big mistake. Got caught in really bad deals. It looks like the Clampetts and McCoys got a sailboat coming into the harbor. All the things were laying in the dock. So I got off the boat and said that was it. A guy that turned out to be my boat neighbor took me sailing on the bay that night. Full moon behind us.
Oh, beautiful.
Breeze. It was the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. We came to the Bay Bridge. I was hooked from then on. It's like, no, sailing is cool. First experience wasn't that much fun. Second one sold it. It's beautiful. It's nice out here. Don't you agree, Lou? You guys are all smiling.
It's
true.
true.
Girls are smiling.
It's true. We can't stop smiling.
Rob's grinning ear to ear.
Can't go wrong.
All we need to do is see a seal or a walrus or something. We'll be hooked. I mean, it's always an adventure. You never know what's going to happen. You could be up to your ass in alligators in 1 minute, and the next minute, swimming with goldfish in the happy pond.
Yeah. You can take me there any day to the happy pond.
You're already there. You're already there. This is
It's true.
Happy pond. It's like, holy smokes, what happens next? Who cares?
I don't know.
Beautiful.
Greg, if you could give our viewers a piece of advice on how to increase their happiness, what would it be?
Don't do what other people want you to do or expect you to do. Do what feels right for you. If you follow your gut, you're going to be happy. If you do what everybody else thinks is going to bring you happiness, you're going to miss the boat. It's a boat.
Missing the boat.
You don't want to miss the boat. There's a saying that the happiest days are when you buy a boat, when you sell a boat, and I think that's entirely wrong. That was when boats were made out of wood, and they tended to rot and sink. And now that boats are made out of fiberglass, the happiest day is when you're out on it, not when you sell the boat. But those are old terms.
Well, I think the new term is sail now and be happy now.
Or let's get nautical.
One or the two. Could you tell us how sailing contributes to your constant striving to become more happy?
Yeah, I think sailing balances out the rest of my life, so it enables you to appreciate the simple things in life that a lot of people overlook. Just sitting out here on a day like this, there's no motor running and there's not much wind, and we're moving along fine, and most people don't ever see this view of the city. We're about to go under the Bay Bridge, and I think that just helps the overall feeling of happiness that everyone should enjoy.
Thank you. Greg?
It's a beautiful thing, and beautiful things make you happy. So, I mean, it doesn't get more beautiful than this, and if this doesn't make you happy, I think you missed the boat. So, that's about it, really. This is, the water, the sound of the waves on the bow, the wind in the sails, fun people on the boat. Yeah, I'm hooked up.
Don't miss the boat.
Absolutely.
Be happy now. This is Amy Branch signing off for the West Coast Happiness Show. Join us next week. Talk to you soon. Bye.
conversation about how these unpleasant emotions are necessary. And the next emotion I want to begin to explore is disgust, because really disgust is like everything around us in the world is stimuli. It's something, right? Mm-hmm. And we will form an evaluation of it. We'll judge it as either useful, unuseful, pleasant or unpleasant, right?
Right.
And now a lot of times we don't think much of this, liking or disliking. It's something that we think that it's just natural, and we either like something or not based on something we can't control. Mm-hmm. But again, we've got to realize that disgust is one of these unpleasant emotions that often is overlooked. We generally consider fear, sadness, and anger the three main ones. But disgust, even though it's not as popular, it is so much more pervasive, because everything in the world is something that we form an evaluation about, of whether we like it or not, and how much we like it or not, and how happy or not it's going to make us.
Well, George, I think that's a profound thought. I hear the word every once in a while discussed, but I've never really thought about it. And now that we're giving it some thought, I know for me, rather than liking and not liking things, because again, you build resistance with those types of thoughts, and then you can build fears around losing things that you like, and anger around not getting things that you like. So I like to think in terms of preferences rather than likes and dislikes, because if I get my way, great. If I don't get my way, great. Then it's a preference. At least I know what I want, and I think knowing what I want helps me to obtain it, but also realizing I may just need more patience to wait until it's my turn to get what I want enables me to handle it as a preference and not to become over emotional about the things that are just not in my grasp as yet.
Right, and you had the key when you said that, we can have these dislikes about what's out there in the world, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we like or not, whatever it is, because our happiness isn't dependent on it. That's why these unpleasant emotions are unnecessary. Mm-hmm. For example, we watch television. There's a lot we're going to like, there's a lot we won't like. But we can just decide to just constantly concentrate and focus on our happiness to the extent that we say to ourselves, fine, that something out there may not be what I would prefer, as you were saying, but, my happiness is just not dependent upon it at all.
Excellent, excellent. And I think the trick is, people are sitting there watching this and saying to themselves, yeah, it's easier said than done, because, all of a sudden I wake up, I'm reacting to something, I'm being motivated by, for example, they're watching this program and they're saying, oh my God, I just tuned in and I wanted to see this show and now it's half over. That's like getting angry about something you want more of. I think the trick here is, when you're not in control of your emotions, to accept the fact, not judge yourself for it, accept yourself for it, and put happiness first again. Because we're not that easily changeable. In other words, we're a whole set of conditioned responses, and it's been going along for a lifetime. So you can't just push a button like a robot and everything changes for the better. But it's a beginning. And George, as you make us aware more and more that the things we like and dislike may still evoke a response in us, but in that moment, in the next moment, we can let go of that reaction and respond with happiness that, okay, so this isn't going to get me what I want. It never has, it never will. So I'm going to begin to change right now by realizing it.
That's a great point, because what happens is we actually do, for example, with disgust, have a choice of whether we like something or not, and a lot of times what we like or not has been conditioned, as you were saying. For example, in England, I think that basically they like their beer warm. Okay, if they have a cold beer, that's not good for them, right? Here in the United States, we want our beers cold. We taste a warm beer. What is this? So the idea is that, these unpleasant emotions, and it's not just about disgust, it's about anger, it's about sadness. These are things that we've just been conditioned to experience. And we can decide, let's say we haven't experienced classical music before, and we just don't understand it, we don't appreciate it, we say, what is this, you know? We can make the decision, we can say to ourselves, I'm going to like this. I'm going to find what's beautiful, what's valuable, and I'm going to make the decision, just like we make the decision to focus on and experience happiness throughout our moments, throughout our days. We can make the decision to focus on the pleasant aspects of whatever it is that we're experiencing.
Yes, and that's very true, trying something new. And I think it comes down to judgments. In other words, how we judge people and events and things, really, we do it, again, for safety's sake. You know, we want to know that we can trust the other person, and we shouldn't be afraid of the other person. But when we do that, aren't we limiting ourselves? Don't we, you know, take a person and put them in a very tiny, weeny little space and say, okay, now I feel I can trust that person as long as I keep him here. Why not just leave it wide open and don't be afraid of experiencing life and people, and then realize that you don't have to worry about what the other person's going to do. Just concentrate on what you're going to do and how you're going to handle yourself. Because generally we're afraid because we don't know how we're going to react. And we know, given that situation, we'll react badly, and then we don't like it later. So I think the way out of this predicament with anger and all these different emotions is to realize, come to the realization that you can cope with anything in this moment in time if you had to do so. It's thinking you can't deal with something that creates fear. All fear is your inability to deal with something in the moment. That's all it is. So if you just tell yourself, you'll do it, you'll do fine, maybe not as good as somebody else will tell you should have, but if you tell yourself you did the best you could, you go on, and what you get is you get to do it better next time, and you don't judge yourself for it. And I think that's an important key here.
Oh yeah. Here's something also very interesting about fear. They've studied fear, you know, psychologists study all these unpleasant emotions, and apparently with fear, they've discovered that over 90% of what we fear never transpires, never comes to be. Okay, so I mean, if for no other reason, we shouldn't resort to fear, we shouldn't choose fear as an option for what we're going to be feeling and experiencing, because it's just not necessary in that sense. This can be applied to anger. I mean, like, you know, we're taught that something happens and the appropriate, the right response is to become angry. Okay, this is like it's wrongful. It's wrong teaching. The traditional back in the '60s, there was a movement where they said, well, if you're angry, express it, let it out. You know, intensify it. You know, get it up. Then they were saying that without really studying it. Then they studied it. A psychologist, Ellen Langer, and Carol Tavris. And she basically discovered, no, generally, for most of us, when we give rein to our unpleasant emotions, they'll often intensify. So, again, it's being able to move away from them and realize that they're not necessary and go back to what we really want to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the movement might have been Gestalt therapy with Fritz Perls, and he was so into people verbalizing and acting out their anger and everything else that he would say, look, you want to choke me, choke me. He had to give it up because they had to actually pry a person off him because he was getting choked to death. And he said, okay, that's the end of that therapy. We're going to move on to a different way of dealing with anger. So he found out it doesn't work the hard way. I think this is also interesting, and it's a shame that we just seem to run out of time as we get into these discussions, and I think we can go on and on with this. And I think the key here is to take control. I think that's the key. When you're taking control, you could come out of less anger, less fear, less sadness. It's feeling like a victim or feeling that you've got some kind of power. And I think if we practice happiness first, and I might want to say that if you want more information, check out our website, www.happinessclub.com, and come down to a meeting in Fairfield at the Happiness Club. I just wanted to get that in because people need to learn more about this stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay, great. We just have half a minute left. Again, remember, these unpleasant emotions, they are not necessary. We can learn to just focus on happiness and continue to focus on happiness. Okay, well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. In the future, we'll explore other topics designed to help us better enjoy life. Be good, think well, feel very happy, and I hope you'll join us again next week here on The Happiness Show.
Underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.